It was a cold winter night, and the sky was so clear. The snow on the ground sparkled and glistened. The coyotes sang their song as SoWuv stuck his head out of the teepee to look and listen to the night. He seen one star off to the east that outshined all the rest, and a coyote seemed to be singing to that star. His nostrils stuck together as he breathed because it was so cold, so he pulled his head back in. He looked around at his family as they lay sleeping by the fire in the center of the teepee. Seen his sister, his grandma and grandpa, and his mother and father. He watched the fire and the sparks that flew upward and turned into cold ash as they flew out to the top flaps. He was waiting for something, but he didn't know what. He was asleep like the rest of his family when a dream came to him. It told him, something will happen tonight that only comes to those that are good. And that's all his dream kept telling him. He awoke just thinking about what his dream had told him. After no ideas came to him about his dream was when he got up to look outside and listen to the night. Something will happen tonight that only comes to those that are good. That kept turning over in his mind as he remembered all the times that he didn't feel like going after firewood with his sister when his father would ask him, but would go anyway, and usually they would run across some animal relative who would put on a show just for them and make them laugh, and he would feel real good he went after that wood. He remembered all the sweat ceremonies he and his family took part in. And how he was taught to respect his elders and everything, because they were all given to us by the Creator to use. He remembered the stories, the songs, and the dances that his grandma and grandpa had left him and told him. When off in the distance, outside the teepee, the sound of rattles shaking in rhythm, and a boy singing a song he had never heard before. He was scared, because he figured it was that time for that thing, good or bad, to come. He thought about waking his father, but maybe this was all a dream, and he would be shamed. So he crawled back under his skins and laid listening. Then the pace of the rattles slowed as the singing stopped. It seemed to be right next to the teepee. He pulled the skins over his head when he seen the door flaps begin to move. He thought, ooh, what can this thing be? His heart began to beat hard and fast, and there was a lump in his throat, when all of a sudden he seen a red-quilled moccasin step in from the crack that he'd made between the skins. He could smell smoked buckskin as a pair of leggings painted red with paint followed the moccasins. The figure had his back to SoWuv as it took off the buffalo robe that it was wearing. This figure was kind of short and fat and would talk and laugh to himself. His whole buckskin would shake as he laughed and made SoWuv feel comfortable when he seen this one smile and laugh. SoWuv stirred under his skins from his laughter, and the man turned around quickly, looking through the corner of his eye at SoWuv's skins. Then mumbled something and laughed to himself. Now SoWuv could see this one good. In his red buckskin, moccasins, belt, and gloves was an old man with long white braids that flew from side to side when he moved his head. He had a smile which reminded him of his grandpa, but his grandpa was asleep just a few steps away, so it couldn't be him. This old man brought with him the biggest traveling bundle that he'd ever seen. Then SoWuv thought, maybe he's going to steal all our goods, and I must be a warrior and protect what is ours. The old man laughed out loud as he heard SoWuv's thoughts, and reached into the bundle and pulled out some of the longest porcupine quills and laid them by his grandma. He then returned to the bundle and brought out a pouch of Indian tobacco, which he put by his grandpa. Returning to the bundle, he pulled out an elkhorn knife and sweet-smelling smoked buckskin and placed them by his mother and father. He then brought a girl's doll wearing a small buckskin dress and put that by his sister. Then the old man moved towards SoWuv's sleeping place. He squirmed deeper in his skins, but did it in such a manner as to pretend he was asleep. The old man had a bow and arrows that he laid by him. He stepped towards the doorway where he brought out a pipe and an eagle fan. He prayed to the Creator and asked for a blessing for the whole family and all Indians and everything. And then he blessed himself. He put it down, presented the pipe to all the four directions. And lit it with a sliver from the fire. It smoked, and he returned everything back into his bundle. He then smiled as if he'd done a job well done. Put his buffalo robe back on and proceeded to go out the doorway. SoWuv got up quickly as he seen the door flaps stop moving. To see this old man outside. There he could see real good from the full moon and clear night. This old man was talking to some deer and was feeding them something and patting them as he spoke to them. They were the same kind of deer that were around their home. Each deer had a harness which connected them all together with reins that led to the back of the sleigh. Each deer had a rattle shell mounted on the harness, and this is what he'd heard keeping rhythm for the old man as he sang. Antlers swayed and nodded as if they understood what the old man was saying to them. After he'd fed them all, he walked to the back of the sleigh. On it were more of those big travel bundles, just as big as the one he had brought in, all with different designs painted on them. He placed the bundle on top of the rest of them, then stood on the runners of the sleigh and looked up to the moon as if to tell time by it, smiled and nodded as he seen SoWuv peeking at him. He began to sing that song once again and lightly snapped at the reins, and they all started moving in rhythm and him singing. Then he laughed real hard as he thought of SoWuv watching everything and waved to him as they pulled away. Once the song had faded away, SoWuv thought to himself, who could that have been? Was it all a dream? It seemed to take so long, but now it's all over. It seems to go like that. He knew the old man knew he wasn't asleep and that he was peeking at him. Why didn't I talk to him, he thought. These kind of thoughts went through his mind as he looked at all the things that one had left. And he laid back down. He fell back to sleep thinking about all he'd seen and heard and holding on to that new bow and arrows that were freshly cut and made. But how could that be when the spring was when they made them? When he awoke, it seemed he'd slept all night and was the first to get up. He was still clutching on to his new bow and arrows and began to wake his family. Hey, look, what I got and what's been left here for you. He woke the rest of his family. Look. He began to tell them what he had seen and heard, and they smiled at his story. Once he had finished his story, he asked his grandpa, "Who was that man I seen last night?" His grandpa smiled and nodded to himself and said, "He comes in the winter like this, and on a night like you said. That's that one good spirit that only comes to those that are good." We don't live in teepees anymore, and many of our old folks have passed on. But that one good spirit still comes to only those that are good.